Hello, this is Janos. The channel is Real World Audio and I'm just checking. Yes, I am recording. Awesome. So today it will be about void pipes and I'm answering Pistol Pete's question, and he asked this 3 days ago, and I've been thinking about his question since then, and I think this is something really important that he wants to know. First of all, because he's asking about his first speaker build, and there was a time for me when I was at Pete in your shoes, when I was doing my very first speaker build, and I had a lot of questions in my mind and a lot of things that I thought I needed to know. And as usual, what life has proven me is that what the questions I had were the wrong questions. And I think that's the hardest bit with audio, and not just audio but everything in life, that what we think the questions we need to know, they are not the things that they are required to reach our goals. So without further ado, let me just go into Pete's question and my way of answering it. Alright, before I learned all this, I fell in love with the look, simplicity of build and all the great reviews of the void pipes. I'm adding that. This was going to be my first speaker build at 65 years old. I know, the laws of physics are basically written in stone as we understand them, but we found ways to compromise some laws. Is there any way to build this speaker by decreasing size of the speaker, adding additional drivers without involving incredibly difficult but high quality crossovers without folding the pipe? So actually this is something very crucial. Now I'm just going to zoom out a little bit, kind of like having a camera with you, and now we have focused on a question. Now I'm zooming the window out, and I'm not just zooming it out for Pete but for everyone who is thinking about loudspeakers and building loudspeakers and projects. Because whenever you look online and you are looking for loudspeaker builds and projects, you know, there's like a million of them, and everyone is saying, of course, when someone posts a loudspeaker build, they will tell you that this is great, they loved it, because if they don't, they won't share it, or maybe they share it with the explicit description that do not build this because this is crap. If that's not how the video starts, then the person who built the project was excited about it, but as you are not the person who built it, you just want to know more about it, whether it will work for you or not. And as always, the sad truth is that you won't find it out until you build it. So that's the shortest answer to everything, to every question, that if you never tried swimming, you don't know how it will be until you try swimming. So that's the same thing with loudspeakers as well. However, when looking at the myriad of loudspeaker builds, from single driver, multi-driver, planar speakers, folded pipes, what you can imagine, like sealed cabinets, multi-cabinets, over-dampened, under-dampened, non-dampened. So there's a billion of them, and you do not have the perspective to be able to tell which design does what. Because for me, I have my perspective as someone who's been living with building speakers and listening to them critically, and being in the community with people who know an exceeding amount of loudspeaker design, of not just loudspeaker design but application, system synergy, and when you spend like tens of thousands of hours with it, you develop a very different feel, and now you see a lot more of the field. And when I see a loudspeaker design, a DIY plan, what I see is very different, very different than what I saw when I was about to start my first build. And now I'm looking at void pipes, because Pete, you're also looking at void pipes as your potential first speaker build. And why would I recommend to do that and build a void pipe as your first build? And now, with my experience for 3 decades of fussing about with loudspeakers, is that I recommend a void pipe build for everyone who is into building loudspeakers or who wants to get into loudspeakers, for several reasons, but maybe the number one reason is that the void pipe is the archetype of loudspeaker cabinets. And I never ever read this anywhere. I just found this out by doing research on my own, doing my own legwork, that the first instance I heard mentioning a loudspeaker cabinet built acoustically for a driver, for a speaker, was the Paul Voigt's void pipe. This was the very first speaker cabinet that was designed with acoustic considerations. Everything before that, they just regarded the cabinet as a cabinet, so to put in as a furniture in your room, and they did not think about what kind of acoustics does it bring, what's happening there. There were no calculations for cabinets, no, not even thoughts. People thought of loudspeaker cabinets just as a way to put it in your house, put it somewhere, because you cannot just put a driver and hang it on your wall, or just leave it in the middle of the room. Of course you can put it in your wall, but at that time, try to find any people. No, that's a sideline. I don't even want to go there. But long story short is that Paul Voigt designed the void pipe, designed it to have the acoustic parameters that fortify the sound of the loudspeaker and help it deliver bass, because the primary purpose of the loudspeaker cabinet is to deliver bass, because drivers they work terrifically in the mid-range frequencies and high frequencies. You don't need any support for a driver to work like a kilohertz and up, but if you want to go down to 100 hertz or even lower, you need support for the driver, because the size of a normal loudspeaker driver, even a 10 or 20 inch cone, is not sufficient to couple the energy to the air without support. And the sad reality of physics is that the deeper frequencies we want to couple and the higher efficiency or sensitivity we want to couple, the bigger the cabinet volume needs to be of the cabinet. And that is because we are using pressure-based considerations. So we are using the cabinet to be like either like a sealed cabinet or a bass reflex cabinet, or if you are using a horn loudspeaker, then the internal volume of the speaker doesn't really matter, but the mouth of the horn becomes a consideration. And to have really low frequencies, you need a gigantic, enormous mouth to produce really deep frequencies. And Paul Voigt's void pipe was a unique solution because it is capable of reproducing very, very low frequencies with almost negligible internal volume, because even though the void pipes are very tall, but their internal volume is absolutely minimal. If you want to decrease the size of the void pipe, as Pete asked, like, is there a way to make the pipe shorter? Yes, you can make it shorter, but in that case the length of the pipe will not support the bass anymore. And if you want to have deep bass, then you need to increase the internal volume by a whopping 5 to 10 times what it was before, when it has that roughly 2 yard or 2 feet length. If you want to have that deep frequency extension, you need to have like 4, 5, 6, 8 times the internal volume of the cabinet. So that's quite a radical change. And again, why I would like to recommend the void pipe as a first build is because it's the grandfather, it's the root of all speaker cabinets. And basically, when you look at every loudspeaker cabinet today, it is a derivative of the void pipe. And now I will get a lot of comments, oh, this and that cabinet, they had nothing to do with Paul voice design, they were developed different, etc., etc. And that's true. That's perfectly true. Loudspeaker development was not a linear process. There were thousands of people in several different continents, many of them completely isolated from each other. There were lots of people who they didn't even know their work. They didn't even know each other existed. There was no internet until recently, and news traveled much slower than it does today. However, when you look at the designs, if you take a void pipe as the basis, by in doing incremental changes to it, you can reach any other loudspeaker cabinet type from the void pipe as a root. And you would say, wow, you can take any other, like this loudspeaker behind me, and I can change that incrementally and get to any loudspeaker. That's also true. However, the void pipe stands in a very singular position, is that it's like kind of like in the middle of the circle. So if you want to get anywhere, you can get anywhere from a void pipe with the minimal alterations. If you want to get, let's say, from those babies to, let's say, to a spica or a modern speaker, then you have to travel a lot more, make a lot more alterations, a lot more distance, cover a lot more distances, and kind of words fail me, because I have the concept in my head, but there are no really words that can express what that visual interpretation that I have inside. So I'm resorting to giving you analogies and trying to describe or circumscribe things. But basically, the void pipe is a loudspeaker cabinet, which is, I would say, the most efficient loudspeaker cabinet in the most compact size. And now, if you think about it, there are more efficient loudspeaker cabinets, but they are way bigger. There are cabinets that can go deeper, but they are a lot less efficient, and etc., etc. But you see, as it's like a dough that we can stretch in any direction, and it stretches somewhere, but where it stretches from is the void pipe. And then from the void pipe we have high efficiency driver inside, and we can increase the efficiency and we get to horn land. We can decrease the efficiency and then we get to a multi-driver land. And with every change what you see and what you hear online, that I have improved the design, it's better than it was before, but that's not true. Not in any case. Whenever we do a change to a design, for example, let's say adding an additional driver, it's not improving. It's not an overall improvement. It is improving certain aspects and taking away other aspects. So the progression is never linear. There's always something gained, and when you gain something, you also lose something else. And I think that is the hardest lesson to learn, and that takes the longest for any and every DIYer to hammer into our heads, that when you change something, it's not better, everything better. Some things are better, but some things are lost. And that's why I would recommend for everyone to go back to the roots, to go back to the void pipe, to see what was the archetypal cabinet, what was the archetypal sound. And I would recommend to keep it as a reference, because for example, now I start to return to myself, to talk about my experience. So before I built my first void pipe, I was on the same track of thoughts as you, Pete, that I must have probably add more drivers to it, and I have to find a way to make it smaller, and that was also my thing that I was thinking about. And once I built it, I realized that a lot of things that I imagined, how it would sound, how it would perform, what are its limitations, what are its strengths, were absolutely wrong. I had a totally wrong picture in my head. And it's always you who have to explore how it is for you, what it is for you. And what is really important is that the loudspeaker in itself is not everything. It is part of the system, part of the chain. And my experience of 25 years is that for void pipes, the exact same pipe, you can experience it as a junk speaker and also the best speaker you ever heard in your life. And the difference between them is there's no difference in the loudspeaker. The difference is the room and the system associated with it. Now, usually when people build void pipes, if they have a pretty decent system with it, they always enjoy it to a degree. And what I noticed is that people enjoy it a lot more because it does a lot more than they would expect from a single driver. And what I wanted to say, I kind of forgot it. But the important part is that whether you will like it or not, it depends on your system and your room, that whether it has a synergy with the pipe or not. And if you are so lucky that you have both the room and the system for the pipe, then it will be something phenomenal, and it is not just something that looking for an ultimate speaker and which is the ultimate speaker. I think that's the very wrong way to approach void pipes or any kind of loudspeakers at all. For me, what I noticed is that when you decide on a specific loudspeaker, it's not just the loudspeaker, but also the loudspeaker molds the way you listen to music. There are some loudspeaker types or loudspeakers that need to be listened at volume 11. And there are other loudspeaker types where you don't have to push the limits of the volume. And and these things have to be experienced. Maybe you are that type that you need to listen to everything like at excruciatingly loud volumes. For that persuasion, VoIP pipes will be an absolute failure. Don't try it. I don't even recommend starting modifying them. No, just go for horn speakers, and anything else will be just a total disaster in the making. And you need something that is extremely efficient, and then go for that. While VoIP pipes are very efficient, but the single driver, it limits the volume to reasonable volumes. And I'm not saying to very low volumes, because with my VoIP pipe I can play a full classical orchestra, playing modern orchestral pieces with kettle drum, the timpani in it, with a church organ in the background, a full choir, and it can handle the complexity at a volume that is a satisfying volume, comparable, that gives me an impression of a live event happening. And but you don't want to push it beyond that. If you want to push it beyond the sonic limits, it will collapse, it won't work, it will start to distort. And but I would say a lot of us, we have that notion in our head that the playback has to be at an excruciatingly loud volume, because that is the goal, and that's what is pushed on us, that it has to be really loud, at least as loud as the live event. And it's kind of like the quantity versus the quality. That's if you are a musician or somebody who knows, has developed hearing or taste of, or appreciation of music, then all of us, all of you know that it doesn't have to be extra loud. When a musician plays extra loud, is to compensate his lack of skill, and he's playing super loud because then it just fatigues your ear, and you have no way to tell whether it sounds good or not, because your ear is just being fatigued to hell and beyond. And at that volume you cannot tell the quality of sound anyway. And maybe if it's a good system, good enough, there are systems like that can play excruciatingly loud and still very good. But there is very rare. Those are very rare and very hard to find. And you need an expert to build those. And it's not going to be a first loudspeaker build. And it's not going to be cheap either. It's a life's quest to get to that point. But we don't have to get to that point. That is not the destination for every single human being. Yes, there are some human beings who have that destination and who have reached it, and it's fantastic, but that does not need to be yours and everyone's. I have lots of audio friends who like to listen to very quiet volumes, and it's a bliss. It can be a bliss, and the VoIP pipe is a system, is a loudspeaker that can give you bliss even at moderate volumes. So you don't have to, you are not conditioned, you are not forced, you are not straitjacketed to listen excruciatingly loud. And also it will punish you when to try to go excruciatingly loud, because you will start to hear distortion. However, people will now chime in, yeah, that because single drivers suck, because they cannot reproduce the whole frequency range by themselves, and there's some truth in that, and also not. It depends a lot on the quality of the driver. I have heard single drivers that are a lot more capable of reproducing a wide band frequency range than 3 drivers put together. So I'm talking now about the Cube Audio FCA driver, which can reproduce a lot better 25 hertz to 18 kilohertz region than 3 or 4 drivers put together. And I'm not talking about frequency measurements, I'm talking about listening experience. And of course, if you want to push it 110 dB, you cannot push the FC8 that loud. So there your 4, 5, 6 way will be more reassuring, cleaner sounding, and more effortless, a lot more effortless, can do it a lot better than the FC8, but take the volume down to 80 dB peak, and the 5-way system will fall apart, will be demolished compared to the FC8. And now the choice between them is your preference. What volumes do you listen at? Because what you want to do is to pick that loudspeaker type for your everyday needs. And that's where people go wrong, is that they hear something, oh, I heard that this can do really phenomenal things, but they don't read the fine line that, yeah, it's really phenomenal when it's playing 100 dB plus region. But when you try to listen to it like a late night listening, 60 dB, it collapses to oblivion. And the reason for that is every single solution is specialized. Everything, every loudspeaker, everything is specialized. And you need to pick one that's specialized to your needs. And I can guarantee that everyone has multiple needs. And you just have to prioritize the one that is your primary need and pick that loudspeaker system which speaks to you, your everyday language that you want to hear. And of course, what I noticed for myself is that the spice of life is variety. And to appreciate a good speaker, you can have multiple good speakers, and it's not that let's say a Cube Audio FC8 based VoIP pipe is better than a 5-way system. That they are different, and each of them does something different well. Each of them excels at something different, and each of them fails at something different. And if you want to put the two together, it will not work. But you can come up with new things, and it will excel at something new, and it will fail at something new. So that's how loudspeakers are, and the stereo is that there's always pros and cons, always strengths and weaknesses, and by changing something, we alter the ratio. Not the ratio, but alter the choice of weaknesses and the choice of strength. And why really I recommend to build a VoIP pipe? Because it's something so different than whatever we heard in our lives. Because when you hear like loudspeakers that are commercial loudspeakers, they are just as far as possible from a VoIP pipe sound. And why I'm saying that it's beneficial to build one is that you get a very, very different perspective. And maybe you are looking for that perspective, or maybe you will be happy with it as a complementary perspective. And it's for each of us to find what are those music that you want to listen on it. And as always, whenever you pick your favorite 10 songs or albums, there will be speakers which are the best suited for each of them. And even though maybe you can have like a better loudspeaker, but there will be an album that will always sound the best on that specific loudspeaker. And it's not because it gives the most bass there, or most efficient there, or whatnot, or has the best frequency extension, or the most accurate or clinical, or musical, or whatever terms you want to find, but it plays the way you like it. That's the most important part. And the void pipe, it just gives you a very different perspective. However, I cannot tell that it gives you a singular perspective, because in every room I heard my void pipe, it sounded radically different, and change the amplifier, it has the biggest change. So the void pipe, the biggest strength of it that I've noticed is that it will react the most to any kind of systems change. So you will be able to use it as a guide on modifying your system. So when you do any change to your amplifiers, to your room, to your cartridge or streamer, the void pipe will reflect the change 10 times, tenfold, compared to almost any and every loudspeaker type. Of course, there's also horn speakers. They are also excruciatingly sensitive to changes. But I would say that the void pipes give you an even more balanced feel of the changes that you do in your room, and they are even more sensitive to placement and room changes and amplifier changes, and those, the reactions of a void pipe to a system, like even just looking at the bass, like when you use two different amplifiers, the difference in the deep bass will be bigger when you feed it with the right amp compared to adding a powered subwoofer. Find any good powered subwoofer, what it brings in the bass to the table is dwarfed by how much the bass will improve if you improve your amplifier. And that's why, that was my 2 or 3 decades experience, is just build a void pipe that's as close to Paul Voigt's original pipe as possible, and it will be an indicator loudspeaker. And then the success, what you want to do it, if you want something more, if you want more high frequency, you want more low frequency, tonal balance, whatever, my answer is do not try to screw around with the loudspeaker, do not add more drivers, do not try to come up with different cabinets, just look at the amplification, look at the room, and you will have far greater success, because in those cases the problems and the solutions lie there, and trying to force it on the loudspeaker, it won't fix the problems of the room, it won't fix the problems in your amplifier, and it won't fix the problems with your line AC, etc., etc. So the pipes will really force you to clean up every part of your system. And even if you do not, after that, do not think of the void pipes as your favorite type of loudspeaker, but if you use them as a guiding tool to develop your system, it will open up a pathway to growth that will be tremendously beneficial to any and every type of loudspeaker. So what I noticed, that when I optimize my system for the void pipes, for my horn speaker, or even my low efficiency speaker, multi-driver speakers, they exponentially benefit from that, and they just sound leagues better compared to having a system that was not optimized for the pipes. So I think that's my recommendation for the day is just go ahead and build the pipes. What I found for myself is that when I build them, they are even more beautiful and gorgeous than what they look on pictures. I think pictures do not describe how they look like in real life, because pictures distort and they look really like precarious, like they're going to topple or fall over. No, they don't topple, don't fall over. I had a 6.5 magnitude earthquake where I toppled over, but my pipes did not. They stood. and even though the wall of my building cracked and I could see through my firewall after the earthquake, but the void pipes didn't topple over. They are a lot more stable than you think. And yeah, because the triangle, that's the most stable geometric shape we have. And yeah, so I think that that's my short and long story for advice on void pipe. I hope it is useful. So thank you, Pete, for your question, and thank you all for tuning in for today. Have an awesome day. Bye bye.